All right. Welcome to another live episode of Catch the Craze podcast. But before we begin, have you heard about Raging?
Hey there, this is Meredith Loughran with Ragin', and I wanted to let you know that we encourage and promote independent creators and their projects through organic interaction, consultations, and more. Visit Nita and me at raginavc.com for details and contact information. Hit the button.
Welcome to another live episode of Catch the Craze podcast. I am your host with the most, Crazy Man Vera, and I'm flying this ship Dolo. And we have a special guest tonight, Rodney Fyke, and we're going to be talking about Roadkill Rampage. So, there's nothing else to do but let's get it!
We are the only show for independents all around, giving you a platform to spread your word all over town. Catch the Craze is the place to promote to your fans with the dream of Medina and Sam the Crazy Man. Subscribe to our show and never miss an episode. It's time to get your mans, listen to us on the go. Updated every week, we never miss a day. Join the squad, come on in. It's time to catch the craze. If you are an independent, catch the craze. Making moves on your own, catch the craze. On your grind in the streets, catch the craze. Join the movement, catch the craze.
Yeah, George, we did it again. Come on now. You know you want to do it. Catch the Craze. Oh, I think I just did that intro, right? Welcome to Catch the Craze. So, this is your homeboy, Sam the Crazy Man Vera, and tonight we're going to have a very special episode. We have another Kickstarter going down, James Brown, and this one is for Roadkill Rampage, and it is dark. It is sadistic. All you horror fans, it's the right time for it to come out. It's right now on Halloween, and they're doing a good job right now. In fact, let me just pull that up real quick. Where's that? Where's that page? Where's that page? There it is. Bang. There it is. So right now it's got 53 backers, 22 days to go, 22.77 in the bank. So this is exciting. This is issue 2, Roadkill Rampage issue 2. I had the pleasure of reading number 1. Really good book. So can't wait to start the conversation with Rodney in a couple of minutes. And but before we do, I want to remind you all. You saw that promo in the beginning. The girls are raging. They're our buddies. If you missed the Halloween special yesterday, you need to go back and watch it. It was funny. It was hilarious. Your boy here was singing. We had some reading story times. We had some disc sessions. We all dressed up in costume. It was off the charts. So if you missed it, go back and watch it. It was funny. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to Ragin' AVC right here on YouTube and show these girls some love because they're on fire. They're like the modern day Laverne and Shirley, and they simply balance each other. So that's pretty dope. And again, as you know, we are, what's today? Today's Thursday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 4 days. 4 days from now, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Catch the Craze podcast. Your boy will be here live with special guests, with George the Dreamer Medina, plus we're going to have some special guests. And we're going to be hitting that launch button for Forbidden. We're going to hit that launch button for Forbidden on Indiegogo. And, there it is, bang. For Indiegogo and Kickstarter simultaneously. So if you haven't signed up yet, hit the link in the summary below and sign up to Forbidden on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, whichever floats your boat. Some people prefer one over the other, so I'm doing a double launch campaign. The difference is you're going to have an exclusive cover for Indiegogo and an exclusive cover for Kickstarter. And 8 p.m., we're going to have that launch party. And we have variant cover by John Coates. We got an homage cover by me. We got exclusive Indiegogo cover by Primi Santra, an exclusive Kickstarter cover by Anibal Arroyo. We have a crossover pinup with Philip Russert's Tragedy and Forbidden, done by me, being colored by Philip's team. That's going to be available if we make a backer goal. So that's going to be awesome. And also, not only that, but the original piece that I illustrated, 11 by 17, will be available for purchase framed as well in the campaigns. There's a lot of goodies in it. There's a first day bundle that you want to take advantage of. There's like a 25% savings that you won't be able to get after the first 24 hours. So we're hoping to make this one the biggest, the baddest, the best. So with that said, I don't want to bore you anymore. You see the link in the chat for Rodney Fyke. It's right there for Roadkill Rampage. Hit that link. Go to Kickstarter. Pledge today. Check it out if you haven't done so already. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when I'm saying Forbidden, like saying, "What? I never heard of Forbidden. I've heard your show before. That means you never really watched the show. This is your first time, and I'm not gonna hold that against you. But here it is, Forbidden on Indiegogo, and I'm gonna show you another one, Forbidden on Kickstarter. So you get to pick and choose whichever you want. And I hope to see you on the live chat. But we're gonna run to a commercial break, and when we come back, we're gonna start the conversation off with Rodney Fyke. Since he's early, why keep him in the waiting room, right? He got here on time earlier, so let's hook the brother up. But before we do that, here's a little promo for Forbidden.
He killed his father. A curse on his people. Betraying his family in search of the truth. Awakening the evil behind the curse. Now they must race to save their people. Or die trying.
All right. So let's take you away, buddy boy. Thank you for playing, and we're gonna bring in our guest a little earlier. Let's see if he's ready. Hello. How'd he do? Hello.
Hey, how are you?
What's going on, buddy?
I'm hanging out, ready to talk some stuff.
Talk some stuff. So, welcome to Cast the Craze podcast. This is your first time on the show, so
Yes.
we like to get acclimated. So, before we talk about Roadkill Rampage, which is killing it on Kickstarter, we want to talk about you. So, who are you? What do you do?
Well, I am Rodney Fyke. I have been in and out of the independent market since the early 90s. Started off with a black and white superhero group book that I did with my high school friends called The Superior Seven that we published in the first half of the 90s. Then I colored comics for about 8 years, and then got out of the game for a little bit and came back in 2009, where I met my eventual wife, Tina, or Producer B, and we jumped back into the foray and with our all ages book, Peanut Pudding and Jelly, which we currently have 6 issues of. And we jumped into another goofy little book called Pitter Patter that's about a couple of house cats, Buddy and Dude. And then I decided that I wanted to spread my wings and write more adult stuff. So I wrote a one-shot called Unchained, which is kind of a horror story slash what do you do with power kind of story, moral story. And then we unlock the chains on Roadkill Rampage.
Nice.
Which is, I think, my real first foray into horror. Because Unchained was kind of an experiment. But I consider this my first horror comic.
Right.
So it's been a lot of fun to write. It's been a challenge. And as a matter of fact, I just finished the script, issue 3 today. I had it all done, but I wanted to add a couple extra pages, and the tail end of it wasn't really working for me. It wasn't answering enough questions. So I spent the last 2 days going back in and adding those 2 pages and deciding where to slip them in,
Right.
and how to change stuff around. And then I got that done and immediately sent it to the editor. And then I started writing issue 4 because I guess I was just in the zone. And
Right.
and I went to the gym and I came home and I took a shower. And in the shower, my mind just started going nuts. So I was just like, I'm going to forget all of this.
Right.
And of course I did. I got out of the shower, got dressed, and came downstairs, which is where the studio is. And I forgot. And then I did something else and it came back to me and I'm like, oh crap. So I opened up a document and started typing and vomited out about 3 paragraphs of notes for issue 4. So
Nice.
it has begun.
So you grew up in Cincinnati?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what was it like growing up as a youngling?
As a youngling, oh man, it was rough. Come from a single parent family, and at one point in my young years, I had a stepfather that was a kind of a Jekyll and Hyde. He was an alcoholic and a drug addict, so there was a lot of trauma from my early childhood. Fast forward to the better stuff. Mother raised 4 kids on her own. But you know, my mom always describes me as the one that she never had to worry about because she always knew where I was. She said I was always in the corner and I was always really quiet and I was either reading a book or I was drawing.
Were you the youngest, second youngest?
I was third or fourth.
Third or fourth. Same here.
So, yeah. So kind of the middle child.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I wasn't the youngest and my sister's the only girl. My older brother is mentally disabled. So he was kind of special. So I was, you know, kind of left to my own devices because, as she says, I knew you could take care of yourself. So I was, you know, left to my own devices, which was comic books and, movies and stuff. And that's where all this was born.
Nice. So what was the first comic you read?
The first comic I read was an issue of JLA that I don't remember. I was too young, but the first comic that I remember reading was Avengers 143. And I was hooked from that point on.
At what age was this?
Oh man, probably 6 or 7.
So how'd you get introduced to it?
It was at a grocery store, spinner rack.
Nice. Yeah.
We spent a few years in Evansville, Indiana, which is this little tiny town in southwestern Indiana. And there was a grocery store we went to every week, and they had a spinner rack of comics, which is where I got the issue of JLA. But I got that taken away from me by my teacher. So I don't, so that was gone. And then I came across a copy of, to be honest with you, I don't remember where I got it. I just remember looking at the cover and just ravaging it. And I would literally fold it up, put it in my pocket, and carry it with me everywhere I went. And I would draw all the panels from the comic. And I was hooked. I was just hooked. It had all the best superheroes, Captain America, Iron Man, everybody. So I was just, they had me hook, line, and sinker. I was a Marvel zombie for a long time. Read some DC stuff. But yeah, I grew up on Claremont and Byrne, X-Men, Wolfman Perez, Titans, and then all the other stuff from the 90s. That's when I was doing my superhero book in the 90s. And then the whole Image thing exploded. And
right.
Yeah, so it's I've always been doing it, I guess.
So was it comics that influenced your illustration interests? What was it?
It was comics, and it was the Conan novels that I used to read, because there was this bookstore that I used to go to. It was called the Book Rack, and it was used books and stuff, and they had all the Conan novels really cheap, they were like $1.50, and I got them all. There was 12 of them in the first series, and I eventually, over the course of about a year, I got all 12 of them and just read them. And then I started picking up Savage Sword of Conan, the black and white book, and I read Conan the Barbarian as well, and just submerged myself in that world of fantasy and lore and all that stuff, and just loved it. I was always drawing Conan. And then I graduated from Conan to the superhero stuff. You know, as I got into high school and I started meeting my buddies that were reading the same thing that I was reading in an art class, and we all just kind of, you know, gravitated towards each other and started creating together.
So what was the first comic that you did as a kid?
It was Superior 7 issue 1. Because I never made them as a kid, like, or stapled them together.
Right.
Well, no, you know what? I take that back. Me and a guy in the 8th grade used to do these little strips, like Calvin and Hobbes strips, news strips. And they were just about him and I in space, you know, fighting the space villains. And they were little 3 or 4 strip things, and I would do one and give it to him, and he'd laugh at it, and he'd do one and give it to me, and I would laugh at it. But we never kept them. We never collected them. Right. You know, I haven't seen that guy since my junior high of high school. I don't know whatever happened to him. So, but but my first official book was Superior 7 issue 1.
Nice. And what age was this?
Let's see. It was 90, so I was 22.
22. Now, was this like something that you were doing just with your buddies, or was there an intent behind it?
There was intent behind it because we created this club. We called it the S7 Club for Superior 7. And we did it all through high school. We created. And I wrote, but we never produced any comic books. Well, when we all graduated, me and the artist went to the same college, and the other guy went into the Marine Corps. And for whatever reason, I think just because I wanted him to be involved, I waited for him to get out of the Marine Corps. And when he got out of the Marine Corps, we all got back together and started producing these books. So in that time that he was gone, I wrote the 5-issue story that was the Star Corps saga. I wrote that all out, and when he got out, we all got back together. That's the story that we produced.
Nice. So then what did you guys do with it? Did you try to get feedback from professionals? How did you...
Yes, we got feedback. Now, keep in mind, this was the 90s, so people told you what they felt.
Yeah.
They didn't placate you. We went to a show in Indianapolis, which is about 100 miles away, and there was a Gary Barker who used to draw Garfield for Paul's Entertainment. He was sitting there, and we really didn't know who he was. And we drew the book on crescent board, which is a thick, like a paste-up board, illustration board, and they were off-size. They weren't 11 by 17. We were kids. We didn't know anything. And we plonked this big pile, and it was about a stack that high of these boards on this desk. And we said, "Hey, would you like to look at our book and tell us what you think?" And he looked at it, and he's like, "I think the first thing you need to do is redraw this book on 11 by, on comic book paper."
Right. Nice.
So, of course, it was 56 pages, and we weren't going to redraw that many pages. But we tried to talk Dion into doing it, and he was like, "Screw you guys, no way." So, against all the advice of people that were giving us advice, we printed the first issue in magazine size.
Wow.
And we submitted it to Diamond, and it was accepted.
Oh, congrats.
So,
wow.
Yeah, it was, it was internationally distributed, and it went to we've got fan mail from 5 different continents. And I still have every piece of fan mail we ever got.
Wow.
But yeah, it was, so yeah, we that was our first opinion. But when people got the book and they read it, they loved it. Which was great feedback, because we were bound and determined not to tell an origin story in issue 1. Right. And we didn't. And it's just pretty much started off with, somebody falling from the sky and a fist fight ensuing, and all the members of the Superior 7 getting their asses kicked by a guy that didn't say anything, which just, had everybody on the reel them in.
Right.
So it was a pretty good success. We got a lot of good feedback. We went to New York City, did some shows there, met some people that gave us some really good advice, and we just followed through on it. And then it ran its course. Dion Knuckles was the artist, and he decided he wanted to go his own way and do his own thing. And which was fine because we had already found somebody to replace him. Greg Land, I'm sure you've heard of him. And he actually was working on issue 6 when he got hired by CrossGen, if you remember that name from the past.
Yes.
So he bolted to go work at CrossGen, and we were stuck with our hands tied behind our backs, and that kept happening. We kept hiring people, and they kept getting hired away by bigger companies. So we stopped producing comics, and we started coloring comics because that was a more viable option at that point.
Right.
And we did fairly well for the time. As time wore on and the software became more accessible, and more kids began to be able to color comics in their bedrooms on their desktops, we were getting less and less for our work, and it just eventually faded away to nothing. And just like I said, it ran its course. Everybody got married and moved, to the 4 corners of the earth and had kids and families and all that stuff. And time moved on, and I resurfaced, and Tina and I started Hasm.
Nice. So what was your first convention behind a table?
Wow. That's a good question. My first convention behind the table, it was probably back in Indianapolis. They had some really good conventions back in the day, and they were 2 different promoters that had conventions. So pretty much every 5 months you could do a show, and it was a good show. One was on the south side of Indy, one was on the north side of Indy, but it was a viable crowd, and they spent money. So we went there, and then we did Chicago Comic-Con, Detroit Motor City Con. We went to New York, did the New York Comic-Con twice, and just all points in between.
Nice.
Dayton, Columbus, Ohio, Cleveland or Toledo, just all over the Midwest. One of the pieces of advice that I got from somebody was to dominate your own backyard. So the 3 surrounding states, do that, dominate that. So we did a lot of in-store appearances, which actually helped. And we did very well with those in-store appearances. So that we did a lot of those. But I remember going to New York in '90. We were sitting in between Joey Linsner and Joseph Monks and Eastman and Laird. And we were in between them, in the middle. So
that's a great place to be.
Yeah. We were very happy. And Joe Monks was the one that gave us all the advice on how to get our books in the Diamond, how to solicit the books to the retailers. He took us to school. He sat us down at a table, and just we went to school. We took notes and everything. And we got back home, and we implemented everything that he told us to do, and it worked. Because it was pre-internet. There was no internet.
Right.
So you had to get a comic book buyer's guide, and I don't know if you remember those.
Yeah, I do.
But they had the list of the top 200 retailers in the country, and we took the top 100 retailers on that list, and we mailed sample packs to all of those people. We mailed sample packs to all 15 of the distributors that existed back then, and we got good response. We bought ads in Diamond for issue 1. We bought ads in Diamond for the first 3 issues. We bought ads. They were black and white, but they were ads,
right.
And it got us good traffic. So yeah, it was an experience.
Nice.
And it was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of work.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, so what were some of from your first convention to your latest convention, what were some of the learnings that you took, some of the things that you eliminated from event to event? Because every event's different, the crowd's different, location makes a big difference. So what was the three biggest takeaways that you said, you know what, I'm going to apply this every time and I'm going to eliminate this each time?
Things that I always apply is I am kind and I am personable. I'm jovial because it creates an area of comfort, especially for the children.
Right.
You know, I'm a pretty big fluffy guy, so you know, I'm Santa Claus with brown hair, and that, you know, that helps bring the kids in, and I'm always engaging, but I don't push too hard.
Right.
So it's funny because you learn a lot at a convention from watching your neighbors do things that don't work.
Right.
So that's one of the things that we learned very early on. Carnival barkers don't work.
Yeah.
They actually drive people away. So we don't do that. We always make sure to have the artwork visible, elevated up off the table, so people can see it from across the aisle.
Right.
And we've learned not to have so much. There have been periods where we have so much on the table because I do so much. I have different styles that I draw in. I draw in a really detailed illustration style, and then I do cartoony stuff, and then I do, you know, something in between. So we have something of all of those ilks on display.
Right.
And we got to finding out that it was too much. It was sensory overload. So we've pulled back, and it makes a difference. Another difference between now and then is now you have families that only know the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
They're not familiar with the comics. They never read comics.
Right.
They know what they've seen on TV. So consequently, they don't know, when they come to a Comic-Con, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know the ins and outs like you and I do. Mm-hmm. We know that there is a retailers, a vendors area. If you want a t-shirt or an action figure or a backpack, you have to go over there.
Right.
The people over here are the people that work for the big companies. And the people over here, this is what's called Artist Alley. And this is where all up and comers go to sell their wares.
Right.
And people, you know, they don't realize that.
Yeah.
So when they get to your table, they don't realize who you are, what you do, or what you have to offer. They don't know what a commission is. So they don't know what's available. They just look at all the pretty pictures and they ask you, did you draw that? Did you, or what do you do? Who do you work for? Yeah. You know, things that you would expect people that just know it on the periphery to ask.
Right.
Is what they ask. So you're educating your clientele. Now, you know, this started, you know, right after Iron Man came out. You know, you could see the difference in the crowds.
Right.
Back in the 90s, it was all true comic book collectors. The only people at the shows were people that were fervently involved in comic book collecting, and it was their passion. And it was a big difference, you know. And it was a different time back then. The 90s was a much more honest time, which it's funny because I kind of, there are, you can't really say what you feel about something now. You just can't.
There you can.
It's just the world's not wired that way anymore.
No.
But back then,
hypersensitivity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Back then, if you had a book and it sucked, and you were doing something wrong, people would tell you.
Yeah.
You know, this sucks. You suck. And that's a good way to, you know, toughen your skin.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
You know, so it's a whole different world. But it's funny that I've been able to. I lived in that world. I'm old enough to have lived in that world, and now I'm in this world, and it's two different things. But they both work for different reasons, you know.
Right. So now, how did you and your wife meet? And then how did you, and then
We met online.
well, that's normal today.
Now it is, yeah.
Now it is, yes.
So I had back surgery, and so I was kind of holed up. I couldn't really do a whole lot, and we just met chatting, and we knew each other for about a year and a half, and back in the day, I wasn't drawing. I did everything but draw. So I was, you know, I had to get back into the groove of things, and we got together, and you know, I would always talk about, you know, back in the 90s, I used to do this, used to do that. She said, well, why don't you do it now? And I said, well, I can't, you know, I don't draw, and that wasn't my job, and blah blah blah. She said, well, what can you draw? And I said, well, you know, the cartoony stuff is more in my wheelhouse.
Right.
So we were going to conventions, kind of scouting them out to see, you know, trying to learn, you know, the new way of things, because it wasn't the way I thought. It was still the same as it was 10 years prior, and it wasn't. It was drastically different.
Right.
So we did a few cons, and to kind of, you know, re-educate ourselves. And on the way, we were in Pittsburgh, and on the way back from Pittsburgh, we were talking in the car, and we came up with peanut pudding and jelly, and got back to Cincinnati and started working on that, and ended up doing 6 issues of that. We got a 7th, but it's on the shelf, and it's probably not going to see the light of day for various reasons.
Right. Right. So, what point did you decide that you did? Is it Hasm?
Hasm, yeah.
Yeah. So, where did that come from? Who initiated that conversation?
Well, as I said before, my older brother is mentally disabled, so he has his isms that he says all the time, and one of his isms is have a hasm, and basically what that means is, dude, chill out. So, and it's just something that he's always said. So it was something that was kind of kicking around in my subconscious when we were putting all this together. And I said, you know, I want to name the company Hasm Productions. And she's like, okay. And I, you know, explained to her, and she knew what it was, where it came from. And we thought it was pretty endearing. You know, the story was pretty endearing. Right. So that's what we chose. And that's what we are.
So what?
So when you say, you know, have a Hasm, basically you're saying, you know, you're kicking back in your bedroom, laying on the floor or laying in your bed with a stack of comics, and you're reading the comics, and you're drinking a bottle of Coke and eating a bag of chips and just having a good old time.
Yes. Sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
Yes. So you came up with the idea. What was the first thing that you guys decided that you wanted to do with this production company that you've created?
Well, we decided that we were going to do the book first. We had to have a flagship title. So we put everything into that. And when we got that, there were just so many things to learn that we didn't know we had to learn. We struggled with an online presence, which is actually kind of ironic because the pandemic really kind of forced our hand, because, right. And this was, you know, several years later, several more books under our banner at that point. But the whole pandemic thing really was a blessing for us, because it forced us to have an online presence. And we started doing the videos, and sort of doing the Thursday night throwdown and the Friday night draw that we do with Sean Forney. And we went and actually got a good website that was a functioning website where the books were available and you would order the books online. But yeah, we wanted to have a good product, and we wanted to have, you know, try to publish on a consistent schedule, but that just wasn't in the cards for a few years because life threw a lot of monkey wrenches in it, and it kept derailing us for this reason or that reason. So, which is, always the case with independent artists. You have to rise above that and, really try to concentrate on a consistent publishing schedule.
Right.
So
right.
that's probably the biggest challenge.
And any reason why you decided to go independent rather than submitting to established publishers to produce your material?
Yeah, money. Independent's always just kind of what I've done because I own everything. We own everything. And, I can't sit here and say that if Marvel came knocking and said, hey, we've got an Avengers script, would you be interested? I would say, yeah, but I know a lot of people that have worked for the big two, and a friend of mine who has worked for him told me that he was talking to Mike Carlin, and he was like, look, so and so, I've got your stuff. I know what you can do. You're a competent, whatever, inker, but I have a list of 450 people that are above you on that list that are competent inkers also. And that's what you're up against.
Right.
I know you can do the job, but there are 500 people out there that can do the job as well that are higher on the list than you are, and I knew that. And I've always known that.
Right.
I've always known that not drawing back in the 90s, I've always known that there are better artists out there than me. And I know that art is what sells the book, no matter who's writing it. So I had a small enough ego to be able to set aside that task of drawing and let the better artists do that, because that's going to sell the product more.
Right.
But now that I'm the artist, to save the money, to try to be as self-sufficient as we can, I was drawing, but I hadn't drawn in 10 years. So I had to, relearn what I had forgotten, because art is a diminishable skill. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
And I hadn't done anything since 2004 when I was a background inker on G.I. Joe. And I did that for about a year. But that was the last time I picked up an art utensil.
Which publisher?
Devil's Due. Yeah. Which it's funny because the Devil's Due owner, Josh Blaylock, was a big fan of the Superior 7 back in the day, which is how I got the job, because I told you that everybody moved away and did their own thing and started their families and stuff. So I went to Chicago one year, and Chicago was always one of our biggest shows. And I went there one year by myself, and I ran into him, and, he was blowing up with G.I. Joe, and he was having a private party, and he invited me to the party. And I went up there, and it was a big suite, and their, place was packed, and there was this big closet. And him and I went in this closet, and there were 5-gallon buckets in the closet. We turned them over, and we sat down, and we just talked for like 20 minutes. And I told him, I said, look, dude, I'm flying solo, but I'm still hungry. I want to do something. Do you have anything? And so we chit-chatted, and then I got back home from the con, and Tuesday my phone rang, and it was, I said, hey, you want to work on some G.I. Joe pages with John? And I was like, sure. So that's how I got that gig.
Yeah, Grant Larkin said this sounds like the beginning of a dirty movie.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say. We went in the closet.
It's funny how you cross paths with people and how things get started, and
Yeah.
I find the backstories even more fascinating.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's those moments of connection that you don't think about. Yeah, it's crazy. I have a lot of connections still, from back in the day. And actually, Joe Monks and I just reconnected, and I did a cover for him. He's doing some horror stuff again, and he's releasing it here soon. And I did a cover for him. So it's like, yay.
Exactly. I mean, it's about promotion, right? It's about getting your brand out because you're your own brand, and especially if you're going the entrepreneurial route, it's the more sandboxes that you're playing in, the more that you attract people to what you're doing on your personal project, which leads me to Roadkill Rampage. Because when we're talking, you mentioned that you started out with the cartoony stuff, and now, did you like horror movies or sci-fi drama movies?
Yeah. I was into, like every kid, Star Wars and Aliens and all that stuff. And then, the horror movies from my time, Halloween and Friday the 13th, Nightmare Before Christmas, Chucky, all that stuff, those were staples of my childhood. And we ran to the movie theater every time that they were out, and, had figured out how to get in because we weren't 18, and we got into all those movies and sat there and watched them with glee, and
right.
So I just had this story, poking at the back of my head, and it was so vivid and so clear in my mind. It was like a movie, and I was like, I got to get this out.
Yeah, it's definitely for animal lovers are going to have a problem with this one, right? Because I'm a big animal lover, and I was like, oh,
me too.
I'm like, oh, and I'm watching. I felt like I was watching a movie, so it was well written. It paced really well, and I love the way you ended it. And it definitely sparks a lot of questions. So. Yes. You said it was poking in your head, but what was that inspiration? Because you went from one end of the spectrum to the other.
Well, let's see. I'm going to try to truncate this. I have a part-time job where I drive vehicles, and I was out on the road one day, and I saw this baby raccoon laying on the side of the road, and he was dead. No visible signs of trauma. He was just laying there, and his little hand was out like this. And it was, it's just his cute little hand, and his fur was just blowing gently in the breeze. And I just thought to myself, where was he going? What was he doing? Who's going to miss him? And it just started rolling in my head. So I grabbed my phone real quick, and I just started talking into my voice recorder. And I had the beginnings of the first issue.
Fascinating.
And it was originally intended just to be a one-shot. But as we got into producing it, it just kept growing and kept growing and kept growing. And now it's grown into a 4-issue miniseries.
Wow. So what was that conversation like with Tina when you said, hey, this is the idea? Or what was that reaction like?
She's pretty good about that, all that stuff, because she doesn't really care. Well, let me take that back. Let me rewind that a little bit. We were producing all ages books at the time.
Right.
So when I wrote this story, I kind of wrote it with kid gloves on. And then we got to a point where the all ages books were getting really hard to sell because it's a very small demographic. And I've been wanting to take the chains off for a long time. And as things continued to get harder to sell, being put in a little pigeonhole, we decided that we were just going to take the chains off. And she took them off and said, do it. And I said, now, can I do it the way I want to do it? She said, yeah, but do it with taste and do it with class. And I said, okay, that's fine, because I'm a big Alfred Hitchcock fan. Where the less is more. So there's a pivotal scene in the first issue, and you know what I'm talking about, but we don't actually show it. We imply it.
Right.
Because you never actually see the lady get killed in the shower in Psycho. It's implied.
Right. And
your imagination is a lot more powerful than any image you can see. And so I've taken that approach. Not to say that there's not plenty of gore and blood and guts in it. There is. But you have to draw the line at a certain point with certain subjects. And when you said that you were an animal lover, that's perfect, because in my opinion, your enemy, you're the bad guy, you have to hate that bad guy.
Oh, yeah.
So to hate that bad guy, he has to do something that makes you hate him. And it's going to be something cruel.
Yeah.
And he does something cruel.
Yeah, he's a son of a.
So you're rooting against him, you know.
Absolutely. You know, I was like,
Yes.
oh, that. You know, you launched the first one on Kickstarter.
Yes.
What was the reception like for your first one, and how did you feel? What was your takeaway from that experience?
It was really good. We funded in 44 hours,
Congrats.
which really shocked us. And all of the feedback that we've gotten has been positive, which is great. Your comment about the pacing really lights me up, because I am very conscious about pacing. And I honestly haven't gotten any, and I'm kind of apprehensive to say it, because as soon as I say it, somebody says, "Oh, I think so."
That's
But
how
no,
it works.
it's all been positive, and it hasn't been positive from just people we know. It's been positive from people that we don't know.
And that must be a boost on your confidence, considering that you change genres. I mean, you were in a whole different world, and I can imagine the anxiety, saying, "I wonder what the reception's like. I wonder what the feedback's going to be." You know, because this is a different arena that I'm playing in.
Well, you know, the funny thing for me is I don't have any anxiety when it comes to that, because even as a kid, I'm one of those guys that I'm a believer. I believe I can do it, and I don't know how I'm going to get it done,
Right?
but I'm going to do it. You know, which is exactly what we did with Superior 7. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. We drew it the wrong size. We had too many pages in the first issue. We made every mistake that you could make. We hit every landmine there was to hit, but we still succeeded. We printed 5 issues. We probably could have printed 7 or 8, but it wasn't meant to be. Whatever, life goes on.
Right.
You know, and with this, it wasn't apprehension. It wasn't anxiety. It was excitement. I was excited to get into Roadkill Rampage, and I've still got stories in my head for Peanut Pudding and Jelly. You know, that's still there. That doesn't go away. Right. Tina turns around all the time and asks me, "Are they talking to you again?" Because I'll sit over here, like I'm right here, and she's over here in the corner working at her station, and she'll say, "Are they talking to you again?" Because I'm over here talking to myself,
right? And
it's the characters, they talk to me,
right? So
I've got I jot down lines of dialogue everywhere, and then I put them in a Word document, and I keep them all in a folder. So yeah, I don't get anxious about it. I get excited. You know, because the worst thing that can happen is somebody says that your book sucks. And if that happens, then that's fine. I can take that. I can appreciate that. If you don't like it, hey, I'm sorry you didn't like it. You know, maybe you'll like one of these things that we've done. If you don't like what we do, I've got 100 friends I can, you know.
Right. Because it's a matter of taste. It's a matter at the end of the day. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't take it personally.
Right.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the second issue. You know, there's an amulet or an object that plays a key role in this book. Where did that come from? What made you go that route? Because there's an object that she holds in her hand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is this what's causing what's happening? Does that have anything to do with it? Because
no, if you remember back to the beginning of the issue, she picks that up at the store.
Right.
It's a stress reliever.
Okay,
it's just like a squeezy doll.
I thought it was some sort of omen.
No.
Okay.
It's actually I use that in the scene the pivotal scene.
Right.
Because it's underneath her. So when it's inflating and deflating and inflating and deflating, that tells you what's happening.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
All right. Yeah. I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah. So
because I started thinking that this was causing what was happening, and now she's in. You know, because she has it. Is it going to continue to happen from that point on? So that was where my mind went.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Now I used it as a visual aid to be able to tell what was going on in the scene, the pivotal scene.
Okay.
And it will probably show up again in issue 4.
Nice.
So sprinkle that little nugget in there for you.
So I mean, you have 53 backers. You got 21 days to go. You're ahead of the curve. Sky's the limit from this point on. What can backers expect to get out of this one?
They can expect to get a lot of questions.
Yeah, like me, I got to go back and read it. I was like,
this is our setup issue. So this issue is going to piss a lot of people off because it's going to tickle your chin, and it's going to raise a lot of questions, but it's not going to answer. It's not going to answer a whole lot. It's going to get you on the hook for issue 3. And issue 3 is like My Empire Strikes Back. It's where a lot of things are answered. A lot of people get kicked in the teeth. And so it's going to be a fun ride. We pick up, the issue picks up with Tess in the woods, in the forest, alone. It's nighttime, and she's alone. She's trying to get herself back home, and on her way to trying to do that, she stumbles across an injured dog. So she takes the dog to try to get it help, and when she does that, she stumbles onto an old veterinarian's house. She goes in with the dog and talks to him. During the conversation with him, she finds out that the animals in the region have been doing some really weird and eerie things. But she's not sure exactly how she feels about that. So her being a young girl in a horror story, she does what every young girl in a horror story does. She goes back down into the basement, or in this case, she goes back to the farmhouse where she finds the dog to investigate and see if she can find out what's going on. When she gets there, she kicks the proverbial hornet's nest. And in doing so, she very quickly finds out that evil comes in many forms in the forest. So we have to find out if she will emerge victorious and escape this evil, or if she will be dragged into the depths of the deep, dark forest with mighty evil.
Nice setup. So, what is the most popular reward tier that you find on the campaign?
And Producer B, can you answer that question?
I'm not listening to you.
The question is, what have we found to be the most popular reward level on the Kickstarter? Most popular thing?
We've just sold the most of the basic cover. Right now, it's so hard because there's so many Kickstarters. I think everybody's trying to support everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't really blown it out of the water with any of the tiers this time. Just a lot of basic covers.
Yeah. So, yeah, we have four covers.
Right.
But the basic cover, the Sean Langley cover, and Sean is the artist for the book. Is that correct? His is sold the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And so so talk about your tiers and some of the things that you're offering on this campaign.
Well, let's see. We have a set of metal sketch cards that include all of the villains, all the bad guys in the issue. And we also have we've unlocked the Tess and Ace sketch cards.
Yeah, that's the stretch goals. Reward tiers, we have the standard cover. We have 2 variant covers, one by Sean Forney and one by Andre Ash. That's actually Andre's first variant cover ever. We gave him his first chance. So that's going to be hopefully a collector's item someday. And then we brought on Steph Wilson to do a naughty and nice version of Tess. So we have those. Those have actually been selling very well. We do have some hollow foil options that nobody's really gotten into those yet, but all the Steph Wilson stuff, the virgin covers are all limited. So, and then I just loaded up a new tier where you can get all of the covers together at a discount. And I'm going to work on putting up all of our books, all of our other Hasm books. So if you missed out on Pitter Patter, you can grab those as well. And our other book, Unchained, that I don't know if Rodney talked about.
Yeah,
but
we talked about.
Yeah, all of the Hasm books. So I'm adding some more tiers because we're in that middle past the first week
Right.
Lull.
lull. So trying to add a few other fun things there. We are getting a print, and it's going to be a pinup in the book from a friend of ours, Adam Fields. So I don't know if you know Adam, but he's an up and coming artist. So he did a really cool pinup of Aaron, the villain in this book.
Nice.
And it's badass.
Yeah, it turned out really cool.
So who came up with the look for the logo?
We kind of worked on it together, but Dave Lentz, he does a lot of stuff with SourcePoint, but we were working with him before he was working with SourcePoint, but he was ultimately the guy that did the logo for Roadkill.
Yeah.
Nice.
And he does all the graphic designs and the lettering for it as well.
Nice. So, what's your turnaround time? You expect the turnaround time for after the campaign ends to get it into backers' hands?
I'm hoping, fingers crossed, we'll be shipping mid-December. I said February just in case.
Yes.
The book, Dave hopes to have all the book lettered by the end of the campaign. It's in his hands right now. And then we've got everything else. It's just him, and he works really fast, so I don't have any problems, any worries with that he won't get it done. So, yeah, as soon as I can get them ordered and get them in my hands, I'll turn around and get them shipped out.
Yeah, I think it's smart to just put the February date because of the paper issues and transportation issues and the post office during the holiday season, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now I hope to be shipping before Christmas is my hope.
Nice. So this is your pitch. You have a captivated audience. Why Roadkill Rampage?
Why Roadkill Rampage? Because Roadkill Rampage is more than just a horror story. It is a mystery story. There is something in the woods that's following Tess. She doesn't know what it is. The only thing she knows about it is that it's evil. So it is a mystery wrapped in a horror story, illustrated with black and white, beautifully illustrated artwork. So you have that moonlit feel all throughout the book, which is intentional, and it's just a fun ride through the dark and scary forest with this character, and we throw everything we can at her, and just to see how she prevails. And it's a fun ride of what's she gonna do? For me, the thing that I've discovered in writing the story is that I was going to take it one way, but as the story started unfolding in my head, I took it a different way with her. And I'm happy that I went this way, because it's a strong female lead character, and you see her overcome things, and yeah, it's just, we put the poor girl through hell, but yeah. It's a fun journey watching her go through it. And there's a lot of comedy in it as well. There's a scene in issue 3 that I wrote that's I call it my Hudson scene, because it's very reminiscent of Bill Paxton and Aliens. Mm-hmm. So it's funny. So it's funny too. So you're gonna be flipping through it, and you're gonna be going, ooh, crap, oh man, and then somebody's gonna do something or say something, and you're gonna be laughing out loud. So it's a little bit of everything wrapped into one big old juicy burrito of a book, and it's gonna entertain you for the whole time you're sitting there flipping through it, and you're gonna go back and read issue 1 to reread issue 2, and you're gonna have a good time. And it's a good chunky story, and yeah, it's gonna scare you, and it's gonna make you think.
Nice. And long-term plan for this title?
It's a 4-issue series, mini-series. So
stop.
We'll see. We'll see.
Right.
For now, never say never.
Right.
But for now, it is tentatively scheduled for a 4-issue miniseries. And I've had a couple people the last week or so ask me, on the podcasts, if it calls for an issue 5, will it happen? If we need an issue 5, we'll do an issue 5. Because I'm not going to say, hey, it's 4 issues and stop at that, because it grows, and as the last 2 days, like I was telling you earlier, I added a couple pages and I went back and I rewrote a couple of different scenes because I wasn't really happy with what I had done and what was being said. And it works so much better now. And it really sets up issue 3 so much better. So issue 3 is done. And I started writing issue 4 today. Well, I started jotting down notes for issue 4 today. So I will be starting on that very soon.
Outstanding. So now if someone wants to get in contact with you, what are your social handles? How can they reach you?
I am on Instagram at Rodney_Fyke. I am on Facebook at Rodney Fyke Art. I am on Twitch at Rodney Fyke Twitch. I am on the Hasm YouTube channel. You can go to the Hasm site, Hasm, HAZZUM.com. All the books are available there. You can find me on Thursdays and Fridays. On Thursday night Throwdown, on Friday night Draw, 8 o'clock Eastern, with Sean Forney, where we draw and work on commissions and talk all things nerdy until about 9:30 or so. So we do that every week. And tonight we're doing this, and tomorrow we'll be doing Friday Night Draw. And then Saturday night I will be on Blast Cast with Russell Allen at 9 o'clock, where we will just be talking Kickstarters and indie projects and just being silly and being goofy. He's going to talk about his card game that he's releasing. So come check that out.
Nice. Well, it's a pleasure having you on this show. You did a great job with the series. I can see why you're doing extremely well with the campaign. If in 9 days you've already gotten past the 2,200 mark, I can see this going $5,000 or better. So continue doing what you're doing. You got the right focus, right mindset, right plan, and you're paying, and it's paying off. Hard work pays off.
Awesome. Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate you on the show, and
thank you for having us.
You got it. Anytime, when you get your next project, hit us up and we'll get you back on.
Will do. All right, man. Thank you so much.
You got it, buddy. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so that was Rodney Fyke, and that is Roadkill Rampage. And if you haven't seen it on the page as we're talking about it, I'm going to put the link one more time for you in the chat, but the link is in the summary. And you have his social handles. Everything is there. So check it out. Make your pledge today. Find out what everybody else is running to get a copy of it, and you want to get a copy for yourself. It's a great time. What a great time to do this than Halloween, right? Really good story. Reminds me of a lot of old horror, sci-fi movies that I've seen that growing up. It's funny how he mentioned The Twilight Zone, because I was a big an Alfred Hitchcock. That was also one of my biggest things growing up. But yes, that was Rodney Fyke. And again, Roadkill Rampage. You can get issues 1 and 2. If you missed number 1, you can get both of them now on Kickstarter. So with that said, let's see what's going on. We do have another guest tomorrow. That's a pre-recorded show. It airs tomorrow on YouTube. And on Saturday, I will probably air the road or that time at EternalCon. So you remember we went to EternalCon and we actually filmed everything there. I never got time to actually upload it, but so it's going to be uploaded. It'll be there Saturday. Also Saturday, speaking of that, I was just interviewed on a show today, and I just want to make sure I get the name right of that show for you. It's going to air Saturday. I will be promoting it on all my social platforms, and I'm hoping that you check it out. It's a new podcast I've never been on, and it's a short interview. It's about 15 minutes, but we talked about Forbidden, and I'm hoping that you've signed up for Forbidden, launching on Monday. We will be doing a live launch. 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let's see. Yes, I was on Sci-Fi for Me. So check it out. They're on YouTube. They're everywhere. They have a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter handle as well, Sci-Fi for Me. And that was a good interview. I enjoyed it. So, and I will be on several other podcasts. I will let you guys know as they come that in the dates. So I know I have one on the 11th. I have one on the 7th. I have one on the 20th. So again, I'm on the road now promoting Forbidden. So trying to build that audience around this book. And I just want, hopefully so far we have people signed up on Instagram, on Indiegogo and on Kickstarter. But I want to make this one the biggest and best one yet. So I'd like to break 100 backers on this campaign. And I know we can do it with your help. So with that said, this was another episode of Cast the Craze Podcast. I am Sam the Crazy Man Vera. George the Dreamer Medina is going to be on JD Calderon's show tonight. He's probably on it right now. And so go check that out. And we'll catch you soon. So I'm out.
It's just easy. It's not.
Crazy. Acquiesce. No, I was talking about my friend Acquiesce. I met him.
Say my name, right? This is what you were thinking? Oh,
he described me. He said, I'm the idiot.
What? Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze. You are listening to Catch the Craze on Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze.